Hey guys, welcome to my next video, how to sew a vintage hood. So this video I'm really excited about because it was drafted from a 1940s pattern. The pattern is out of print, but I have you covered. So if you go down to the description of this video, I do have a link to where you can download the drafting instructions, which I have written up for you guys. So in here, it'll show you how to draft the pattern pieces that are going to be covered in this video so that you can make this at home for yourself. So this is what it looks like. It is this beautiful hood with some scarf tails. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it on so you guys can see what it looks like. Should probably check a mirror, but you know. So it's very, very glam, very 40s, very old Hollywood, which is amazing. And it makes for a really nice hood with whatever your garments that you're wearing. But definitely watch this video, give me your feedback, and I have one little surprise for you guys before I wrap up this little intro, is that I'm going to be doing a giveaway of this version of the hood. So I was going through my remnants and I figured why not. So it is lined in this purple fabric as well. So again, check out the description section below and I'll show you guys in there how to, you know, put in your name for this hood as well. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time. So this pattern is really easy. There's actually only 3 pieces to making this scarf hood thing. So I've already cut out 2 of those pieces. I'm only cutting out the hood so you guys can actually see that in progress. So I'm gonna go ahead and just get started using my rotary cutter, which, to be honest, I do need to buy some more blades because it's starting to get dull. But it's easier, especially if you're using silky fabric, because it cuts so much easier. Cool, so this cuts so much faster than having to use the scissors sometime. And it allows you to use pattern weights so you don't have fabric that's wibbling all over the place. You can just make as many notches as you want without worrying about it. To be honest, the notches are more for you, but standard is 1 notch in the front and 2 notches in the back. This pattern has 2 in the front and 3 in the back, but regardless, you know, as long as the back notches, there's 1 more, you're good to go. So I'm going to show you guys a trick for your pattern paper so you don't have to trace off another piece when you do your lining. So with this one here, first thing, move your regular fabric stuff out of the way. You gotta get your paper scissors. So what you're gonna do is you're actually going to clip into the pattern up into where the lining is supposed to be so that you only have the lining piece, right? But you're not gonna cut this chunk off, you're gonna cut into it. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my scissors and I'm going to cut up to the line. So make sure to go ahead and just start folding it under. The curve's not going to be perfect when you fold it under, but you can kind of get a general outline. And that will make your life easier when you come by with the rotary blade. Well, you can see this is also another remnant that I'm happy to use up. So I'm going to go ahead and get this one set up. And then you just grab your pattern weights and your rotary blade like before and get to cutting. So you kind of have to approximate the curve just because of the fold, but that's pretty simple. So then you just cut your pattern at the notches like before, like you did with the outside. Cool, so after everything has been cut out, go ahead and get this extra fabric out of the way. And go ahead and put this with the rest. Now, at this point, we have this guy, which has its folded little sheets. So I'm literally just gonna unfold them out again. I'm just unfolding them. And then you can take your Scotch tape and you're gonna be taping the pieces. You're gonna tape everything back together so that you can go ahead and use it a different time. Good rule of thumb for any projects that you do, try and take care of all the curved edges first. So in my instance with the hood, I'm going to sew the curved section of the hood just so that it doesn't get stretched out or anything as I'm working. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pin across the top back edge of the hood. You can kind of see that, it kind of goes like this. So just pin across the top, and that's the first seam you're gonna sew at 5/8. Alright, so everything is pinned up. I'm going to go ahead and stitch it at 5/8 and make sure not to sew over your pins. People like to not do that, but it's just not good for your machine. And I've already sewn the lining as well. So once those curves are done, you're ready to keep moving on. So I have my two facing pieces and I'm matching up the top of the facing together. And once I sew across this top part, I'm actually going to be attaching it to the lining fabric. So you'll be attaching it to across the front. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. What are you doing? You know that's my chair. Albóndiga, yeah. Yeah. So at this point I've gone ahead and I've already notched the seams on the lining. Obviously if you're not doing a lining on yours, don't worry about that. And then I've already pressed open my facing as well. Now what's important about the facing, and you want to make sure to refer to your pattern piece, is that it can be a little confusing to look at. So what I recommend, a couple pieces of tape, and I'm putting and this is like packing tape, or I'm sorry, yeah, like painter's tape, so it doesn't damage the fabric really. So I'm putting this pieces of tape on the back of the facing. Like you have to imagine that if you're holding this facing up to your head, this is the back, this is the front, and you just want to make sure not to get confused. So if you're not lining the facing, just go ahead, if you're not lining the hood, just go ahead and finish off that back edge because it'll be raw inside the hood. So if you're just using just the facing, just go ahead and fold it over 1 or 2 times depending on how you'd like it, and then just do a stitch across to finish it. But because I'm lining mine, I'm going to open up this guy, so raw edge, right side, and so I'm going to set the right side facing up towards me, and then I've got my facing and the back side pinned to the front of the lining. matching up the top, and then I'm going to pin the sides together and then stitch. Now you have to remember is that these edges are going to be facing, like, they're concave like this, or like, well, I don't know what the exact word is, but they're facing opposite directions. So you want to make sure to go slowly when you pin and slowly when you sew, because you essentially want those 2 points where they connect to meet as a straight line. However, those pieces of fabric are going to be going different directions. So go slow, take your time. After you've sewn your facing to your lining, just go ahead and trim and clip into your seam allowance, and at that point when you turn it inside out, this is what it looks like generally. I haven't pressed mine, but you can kind of get an idea. Hey! Hey! Gordito. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So at this point, the lining and the hood are already sewn together. I'm sorry, they're sewn, those pieces together, but you're going to be attaching the lining to the hood at this point. So what you're going to do is you're going to turn the hood part inside out. Okay, so now this is right side out and the lining is still inside out. So what you're going to do is you're going to slip the regular outside of the hood into the lining piece. And so from here, it's gonna, right now it's right sides together, which is what you want. So you're going to pin the front of the hood together along this edge here, and then you're going to stitch them together. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So when sewing something like this that kind of has like a equal left or right part, you want to start in the middle and sew one way, and then start in the middle again and sew the other. So I'm starting directly in the top and making sure that lines up, and I'm going to go ahead and just sew down one of the sides first. So now the lining and the hood are attached, so I'm just trimming down everything with the pinking shears, and it's not necessary. You could just press the seam open, but I prefer to do this just because it reduces the bulk. And then once you have everything trimmed down, you're going to want to go ahead and press these seams open, because you want to what's it called? Oh my god, the name is escaping. You're gonna wanna like do kind of some stay stitch action on the facing. All right, cool. I think we're good. You want to make sure to press that seam towards the lining. Yeah, so that seam should be pressed to the lining side, because you're going to be stitching it down. Alright, so once everything is pressed towards the lining, I'm going to go ahead and understitch it, now that I can remember what it's called. I'm understitching this facing to the seam allowance. And obviously you want to make it close. I'm doing mine at about, let's say, it's probably between 1/8 and 1/4 seam. So whenever you have the option to, definitely take the opportunity to understitch your lining to whatever garment that you're wearing. So if it's a dress or if it's this hood, you just want to make sure to understitch it so that the lining doesn't peek out and kind of show whenever you're wearing your garment. So don't skip it. So at this point, everything's stitched up. So I'm gonna go ahead and start taking care of the bottom. Now, the first thing you're gonna wanna do is match up the bottom seams of the lining and the outer hood. And you're gonna wanna baste all the way across. So like a full basting stitch all the way across. And then on your notches here, and I have another notch on this side. I actually did tailor stacks here. So you're gonna do a row of gathering stitches from those 2 points across the bottom of the hood. And that's gonna be for when we attach the hood to the tie. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. So when it comes to the ties, there's 2 of them. This is just one. And so you kind of want to take a look at the 2 ends. There's one, it almost looks like an arrow, right? So we got our point and then the like notch side. So what you're going to do is you're going to fold it in half and match up the ends like hot dog style. So as I said before, you have a pointy end and then you have the, well, I guess now this is a pointy end too. So there should be some notches on your ties, which will help you identify what side is the front and what side is the back. So the side with the notch on it, which is this guy here, is going to be at the back. And then this guy is going to be at the front. Now, the way you're going to sew this is once you've identified what side is the back and where the notch is, you're actually going to start on the opposite end on the front. So you're going to stitch along that front corner up until the notch, finish off at the notch, and then on the other side you're going to sew just this back section. So you're going to have this big gap open between one end of the tie and the notch. So it's going to be like the shorter end. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, but you're going to want to do this on both ties since you want to be able to tie it around your head. So I'm going to go ahead and start pinning and start sewing. Once everything is trimmed down with the pinking shears, you can go ahead and flip it inside out, and I promise you're almost done. So now I'm just turning everything, and then the same on this side. You want to give it a good press at the iron in 2 different ways. So you want to make sure to press the whole thing, and then when you get to the opening, when you're at the iron, you want to press it with the seam allowances into the scarf. This will make it easier later. You're actually doing what's called like a memory crease. So even though that's not, you're still gonna, sew it there, this will make it easier for you to sew it, especially since there's just a little bit to sew by hand. So you want to go ahead and grab all your pattern pieces together and sew center back to center back of the hood. That's how you're going to be working. So right now the opening of the sash or of the scarf is towards the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and use my gathering line from my notch and gather, gather, gather up until the center of the hood. Alright, so we have the part of the facing that is not gathered and then the rest is gathered. So you want to kind of just spread those out as evenly. They don't have to be perfect. You can actually pick how you want them, but I did them evenly. So I've got my scarf and I'm gonna go ahead and lay it on top. So essentially when you sew it, it's gonna be like this, but you're gonna lay it down, open up this memory creased area, and I'm gonna go ahead and open it up and start pinning the scarf to the hood with that memory crease seam allowance open. So you might have to do some adjusting of the hood to the scarf just to make sure it's even. You're gonna pin all the way down until you get to the center back. So pay attention to this. This part is really important. You might have to undo a little bit of your scarf, but this should be poking out a little bit. So if I show you guys here, this part is folded under with the memory crease, and this part, including the seam allowance, is out. So when you sew it in the center, not the entire scarf's not going to be attached, okay? So go ahead and pin it all the way down and then stitch it up, and I'll show you guys the next step. At this point, you kind of got this thing going on where the scarf's going this way and your hood's upside down. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip the seam allowance of the hood into the scarf. And tuck everything in so it's hidden in that memory crease that you did on the scarf. What you're gonna wanna do is pin all the way down in that section. So you pin the scarf down to the hood, and you're going to stitch it closed by hand. Once you do that, you do this exact couple steps on the other side, attaching the other side of the scarf to the hood, and you're done. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you found this tutorial on making this vintage scarf and hood super helpful and insightful. If you guys head on over to my website, which the description will be down below, I'll have a PDF where it'll show the dimensions of the pieces so you can draft your own, as well as all the bullet points and directions that I mentioned in this video. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. It means a lot, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!